Wow. Oh, that's that's difficult because there have been several, I feel. These things happen sort of not every year, but every couple of years they do. And in a way, maybe the first one was the most exciting because then, yeah, you're just starting and you don't know really how this is. So it's extremely exciting, the most intense experience. And this was actually, so I was just starting as a PhD, just for a few months, and then we developed a new method to reveal both the neurotransmitter and the source of an axonal fiber, of a nerve fiber, a technique. So we developed a novel technique by which you could show both parameters at the same time. And this was quite important because we could then reveal the network connections in the brain with this technique. That was the first one. And then later on, this was purely an anatomical technology, but and then we started, of course, doing other things, physiology, electrophysiology, behavior, where we also had exciting things. We started to work on mouse mutants, and we discovered how the cerebellum basically learns. So I'm working on the cerebellum, the small brain in the back of the brain. And we discovered how you can acquire new motor skills. For sure, you use your cerebellum if you have any motor skill. Just ask yourself very simple question. How does the brain look? How does it work? How is it that I can sleep? Why do I sleep? How is it possible that I can see your face for the first time and I can already imprint it in such a way? Very quickly, I just need to see you for a few seconds, and if I see you tomorrow, I know, oh, that's the woman from the Star interview. It's incredible how quickly we can acquire information, how efficiently we can process it, and how well we can use it. And the beauty of the brain is that you can do all those things with the same organ. So you can both get to know how to play a violin, you know how to walk, you know how to coordinate breathing, we can talk, we can walk, all those things. All with this just a 1.5 kilo of gel in your skull. It's amazing. Sometimes it's really important to detach yourself from science to get actually closer to the real important questions. And at the same time, it's also important to be always in the lab to do all these very strange side observations, as I call them. So you can do an experiment, plan to reveal that A is the cause of B, but then suddenly you see something as a side effect that has nothing to do with why you did the experiment. But if you're always in the lab and you see all those strange things, you suddenly can get an insight in some other mechanism about a completely different question. And very often these sort of unexpected findings, they are initially maybe a bit surprising and maybe even frustrating, but later on they turn out to be actually most important. To follow your heart, just follow your heart and just work on whatever you find curious and what you find interesting. So follow your curiosity, and if you're interested in DNA or in molecules, go and do it. And yeah, wonder about the wonders of the world and life. That's a good question. So I that you have to keep publishing. Actually, I think that is important because it's not only to sort of transfer the money that people invested in you to the world, to society, but it's also really important to sharpen the mind. So if you write a paper, you are forcing yourself to read and write very precisely what's going on. This is important in science. You have to be precise, you have to be reliable, reproducible. When you write, you really force yourself to think that way. And then you also, you know where to go, where you want to go, what should be the end point of a paper. And I think this is really important. Now, of course, there's not only publish or perish, it's also nowadays, they really want you to publish in high impact journals, right? And that's a little bit dangerous because sometimes you notice that people, they bend the truth a little bit to get into these high impact journals. And yeah, you should be really careful with that. Yeah, that is something. It's always nice to publish in high impact journals, but I think indeed it is maybe stressed a bit too much. And I think that also the journals themselves have a responsibility. So I think they should actually pay more attention to what is important. So quite often they go to the most high-tech stuff, the newest methods, and they want more and more and more in the reviews. When you've already answered 10 different subjects, they're also going to ask for number 11 and 12 and so on. And I think the editors should watch that. They should actually say, no, we have one important question, and that question is indeed important, and it can be answered with classical methods, the new methods, we don't care, but is the question important? And I think the editors don't pay enough attention to that. And that should be the focus, not so much which technology or which advanced approaches you take. So I think that is what's a little bit less. Yeah, other than that, I would advise every scientist to just keep trying, do low risk and high risk projects and try to publish in both high impact and low impact journals. Just keep going, just enjoy it. And don't get too frustrated if your paper is rejected. Just ignore it and just keep going. Well, that is really important. Just let's say just think about globally, right? Let's say 500 years ago. What would the world look like today without science? I know 500 years ago we had Leonardo da Vinci and he could almost solve everything. Many things happened since then, right? I mean, let's say if there would have been a corona outbreak or the Spanish flu, it was actually, I mean, it's interesting to compare what happened with the Spanish flu a century ago and what happened now recently with corona. I mean, we have been able to develop vaccines within multiple vaccines based on the new technology of mRNA. That would not have been possible, of course, not 500 years ago, but also not 50 years ago. That saved millions of people. That's just, of course, a very concrete example. But in the field of neuroscience, where I'm working, I think it goes much further. It's not just about treating medical, neurological, psychiatric diseases. It really is also about the way we live. So it teaches you what's going on in our brain. Let's say when you are homosexual, when you're bisexual, when you are very religious, all these things can be explained, at least in part, by brain activity. So it can give us a lot of insight into ourselves. It can explain to us why we may be a sociopath, right? I mean, of course, it doesn't mean that if you're a sociopath, right, that this is the right thing to do. Of course not, it's completely wrong. But by understanding what's going on in the brain, we have a way to predict whether someone will develop wrong, and then we may be able to prevent things. Also, it can teach you things in life. I mean, if you want to know what's happening in your brain when you are falling in love, this is very important to know what's going on in your brain when you're falling in love. And then you know that these things come in waves and then suddenly things change. And if you're not prepared to that, you can make very strange interpretations and make the wrong choice for yourself, for your own life. So all these things, I think the depth of neuroscience in society is almost, it's hard to overestimate. I think it's very important for society that we get to know more and more about neuroscience and understand ourselves, our emotions, our perceptions, and the development from early on until we die.